Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Post-Military Podcast. On this week's episode, we have a friend of mine named TR Hacke. TR was an Army NCO that worked for the NSA as an intelligence professional before leaving the service and starting his work in cybersecurity. First, as a contractor for the NSA and then in the private sector. I'm going to be honest with you, this is one of the most intense conversations I've had while doing the podcast, and I highly recommend you listen to the entire thing if you've had any frustrations during your own transition out of the military. As always, I've included timestamps in the description so you can see the major topics of conversation that we cover. And finally, thank you so much for your time clicking on this video. I hope you enjoy it. And now let's get to the show.
Solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear
That I will support and defend.
that I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States.
the Constitution of the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Post-Military Podcast. With me today is a friend and former Army NCO, TR Hacke. TR, what's up, man?
Hey,
How are you?
how's it going, Billy? Good to see you again. Good to hear your voice.
I love your background that you've got going on. Where's that ladder go to? I've seen you in a lot of calls and I've never asked where the ladder goes to.
Yeah, you can see the rail that goes around the room. It just slides.
Oh,
it's like those
cool.
library style ladders.
Did you
it's one of the
build
features
that
of the
yourself?
house. No, it was one of the features of the house that we were just like, wow, that's really super cool. So so I've got, instead of books, I've got all my Ghostbusters paraphernalia and comic books and all sorts
I love
of
that.
nonsense up there. But yeah, it's
They have
almost like,
Ghostbusters comic books?
yeah, there's actually a ton of Ghostbusters comic books that take place after the series and after the movies and all that fun stuff. So, cartoon series. So yeah, I'll tell you
Okay.
about that afterwards. But
No,
yeah,
like
there's also,
I'm curious now. This is not the point of the podcast, but I want to know because I think people will be interested.
hold up.
What is your
I can grab that stuff.
Yeah. What's the most interesting piece of Ghostbusters paraphernalia that you have?
Oh man, my favorite thing, hands down, is the shoes that you can see up there. I'll grab
Yeah.
the comic books and then I'll grab the shoes too. They're called Ghost Smashers. So like one of the things I hope we actually talk about on the podcast today too is like when I got out of the military, one of the things that I took with me and carried was footwear, right? There's certain stupid things that people take with them, right? And either use those tools. I just wore boots. It was comfortable. It was some variation of boot, right? And then it was like a few years after I was still wearing like side zip 511s or something, right? Somebody's like, fuck, man. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I was like, let me get a pair of shoes. And then I was like, you know what? I was like, this is an opportunity for me to take something that I think is not necessarily a hindrance, but definitely a what the fuck from the military and be like, all right, what do I want to wear? Like I remember bubble shoes from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Remember Nikes with the big Air
Yeah,
Maxes?
you like pump them up like
and then
like
Reebok
Dave
pumps.
Chappelle in Robin Hood Men in Tights. Yeah.
Exactly. Pumps up his pumps, exactly.
Yeah.
So that actually dovetailed into the shoe collection. But those shoes started it. I saw Ghostbusters shoes and I was like, how fucking cool is that? So let me grab those comics and those shoes. I'll show them to you real quick.
Let's check them out.
So first, we'll start with the shoes, man. These are pretty rad.
Oh, those
They're,
are sick.
Yeah, they're like totally Ghostbustered out, right?
Yeah.
They're called Ghost Smashers. They're like the old school Velcro Reeboks.
Yeah.
I say, I don't know if you say that. We're ready to believe you. The old Ghostbusters number from the
That's
from the
tight.
movie. Yeah, so these are definitely my favorite Ghostbusters.
Yeah, for people who are
paraphernalia.
listening to this right now, hopefully you're on Spotify because pull up the video and TR showing off his super cool Ghostbusters kicks and some really sick Ghostbusters comics. So tune
Check
in.
'em out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
love
can still
that.
get these from Reebok too, as far as I know. So
That's
definitely
tight.
check them out. And then these are the Ghostbusters comics I was talking about, right? So IDW is one of the big comic book. It's not Marvel or DC, but they've got all sorts of different things that take place after the movies. And essentially they did a haunted tour of America. So they went to Roswell, New Orleans, and they busted ghosts in all these different places in
Yeah.
these comics. And then they've actually got other different series that just take place in different universes and stuff, right? So you got
Yeah.
like a legit, like totally different universe type
Oh,
thing.
cool.
And then here's more of like a real Ghostbusters type deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's all sorts
Sick.
of comic books, man. Which is interestingly something that I discovered when I was in Annapolis, Maryland, doing some training for NSA, and was in downtown Annapolis and stumbled on a comic book shop, and went in, and that's where I picked up my first Deadpool comics. And then that dovetail, I was like, dude, they have Ghostbusters comics. I was like, I started really discovering the world of comics, and it's so much more than. And I think people are seeing that now, right? It's like Marvel and DC movies and the intricacies of the Marvel universe, but there's some amazing stories in graphic novels that they're just amazing. Rising Stars, if you never heard of or seen those are unbelievable. I mean, there's just so many. Nemesis.
I
Yeah,
don't want to
I could probably-
expose myself too much, but I'm a big manga enjoyer. Japanese manga or Korean light novels or manhwa.
Mhm.
I eat that shit up a lot. So I got you.
Very similar rabbit hole, man. So it's great to fall down.
Yeah, it is. Last question before we start talking about military stuff. Have they put out a good Ghostbusters in this century?
Absolutely. So the last Ghostbusters Afterlife, first of all, was done by Ivan Reitman's son. And I thought that they did a really great job of paying homage to the former cast and to the former series, right? Like seeing, even though it was CGI, seeing Egon, seeing Harold Ramis in the start of that flick was like, it still gives me goosebumps, right? I loved that film. I really did. I think the all-female cast Ghostbusters got a pretty bad rap, to be honest. I've considered myself a Ghostbusters fan since day one, right? I've got the costumes from when I was a kid and all that fun stuff. But I think the extended version of the all-female cast Ghostbusters was really good. They changed the tone up. They took a couple of sassy jokes and really made it more playful. And I think that it actually really wasn't that bad. I think people went into it wanting to hate it. There were so many similarities to the original Ghostbusters, right? It was an SNL cast. So there were similarities, right? But then the execution was so far off, people were like, fuck this. The proton packs were different. There was no Egon, right? Now you got Holtzman. And so, yeah, I don't know. I thought they were all good, man.
The all-female cast Ghostbusters definitely more divided. I've only heard good things about Afterlife, though. People seem to really like that. So
Yeah, there were some really nice callbacks too.
I'll bet. Yeah, it's cool to. So I'm not like a huge Ghostbusters fan, but it's really fun to watch things that you're really tied into that do a really good job of doing it. Like I just watched into the new Into the Spider-Verse, and if you're a Spider-Man comic fan, dude, there's so much cool stuff in those movies, and I really enjoyed it. So I can definitely appreciate going into a movie and going, man, they really did the source material justice, which is awesome. But before we dive into our nerd rabbit hole too much, let's get into the meat of what, people generally tune into. But, I'm sure there's some super Ghostbusters fans out there who are like, finally, I'm getting the representation I deserve. Let's talk about start at the beginning. Let's tell everyone about what you did in the military.
Yeah, too easy. So I joined in 2006, right? I was 21 at the time. I joined to be a 98 Charlie, which is a signals intelligence analyst. So I went to MEPS, right? And they're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be intel, right? Like I want to be like James Bond kind of thing. I think I'm going to be like a super spy, right? And they're like, well, we got 2 open jobs. We got airborne cryptologic linguist, and then we've got signals intelligence analyst. And so I was like, all right, that one sounds like I have to learn a language. So I'll take the other one, and just lucked out, right? So yeah, so this is what I ended up doing. 98 Charlie, signals intelligence analyst. Went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Did my little 12-week or whatever fun times down there. Started in January, so it was freezing. And then by the time we graduated in April, it was like incredibly hot somehow. So that was really
Missouri is a weird state.
It is.
It's
really very strange.
They really don't get any. There isn't like a fun time to be in Missouri.
Yeah. It was cold, and then and it was no fun times exactly. And then from there, I did my advanced individual training at Goodfield Air Force Base. Did 6 months of that, and then got stationed at NSA CSS Texas for my first duty station. So I was an E6 by the time I got out. So I did 6 years total. But all of that time was spent in the military signals intelligence corps, working either with, through, or for NSA CSS.
Okay, so we can't talk much about your job. So that's
it's not as cool as you think, right? And honestly, if you really wanted to know about it, they did some excellent documentaries that when I watched, I was like a little surprised. I was like, I didn't think that they would be showing and telling all of this, right? It's a little concerning, but that's definitely not for me to say anything about that stuff. So if you want to learn about that, there's plenty of stuff out there.
Did you work over in Maryland for the NSA? Were you ever?
I did. I trained in Maryland before I deployed in 2009, and then after I got out of the military, I actually contracted in Maryland for a while through a contracting company. Yeah, still working for NSA out there. So it was pretty interesting. Definitely
buy anything from the gift shop.
Yeah, hold on.
I love that.
It's
So
about right.
can you tell all the listeners about the NSA gift shop in Fort Meade, Maryland?
Yeah, so all the little agencies like that have these gift shops where you can get magnets and coffee mugs and things like that. There usually is a sign up that says something like, remember, if you're on non-operational cover, this is what it's going to show up like on your bank statement. So it's definitely a very interesting place, right? You can get things there that maybe you don't necessarily share, right? Like I got my mom a sweater, and then when I like, don't ever wear this out, right? Like you're, fucking
Yeah.
super spy crafty about it, but it's not that serious. It's just a gift shop, but
The
still kind
funny
of cool, kind of funny.
the thing that blew my mind about the gift shop is it's inside of NSA Maryland. So like
Yeah.
it's not like you as a visitor can pull up to the gate and it's like off to the
No.
side. You have to be in the NSA, cleared to be in the building, and then you can go buy your coffee mug. So it's
Yeah.
it's like it's for the people who work there. It's not for visitors, which I always found super funny. Why did you
Don't try to visit that building.
Yeah, no, don't do that. You'll get shot.
If you get off,
a
if
lot.
you get off that exit,
You'll have a bad time.
it's a non-fun experience for you. Yeah.
No, that'll be there's some military police who are just dying for something to do that day, who will just love to exercise justice. So you joined at 21? Were you in college and decided to jump in, or what was happening there?
Yeah, so like you said, a lot of people join either right out of high school, right? I did not do that. I went to college for a little while. I went to Northern Illinois University for computer science, took some computer programming classes, right? Like really tried to go the college route, and then discovered that I was not very disciplined, right? Outside of an environment where I had any supervision. So going down to Northern was not successful for me. And then once I flunked out of that and decided to do more of the work and do more of a technical school, right? I went to, I think it was Robert Morris College at the time for computer networking, but I was working full time and then going to school at night. So it was like a swing, right? So I was fishtailing a little bit, right? So I went to Northern, partied, screwed up, didn't really get my head on straight, didn't have my priorities right, didn't have self-control, didn't have discipline, came home and then overcompensated by getting a full-time job and then trying to pay for technical school and going 3 to 4 days a week, right? So at that point, I had tried that for a few semesters in each place and realized that kind of was unsustainable, right? So I went ahead and stopped doing the classes. The plan was to just focus on work, right? And figure out what I wanted to do. But that just wasn't really, I could still recognize that I had that lack of skills and that lack of drive and that lack of discipline. So the Army seemed like a good idea. And it was actually an impulsive thing for me. It was like, all right, I'm going to join. And then boom, I was like, all right, cool. I've gone to talk to a recruiter and I'm joined now. Like I got a date. Like it was like, yeah. So it was pretty interesting.
I honestly think the impulsive signups to the military are better because I signed up to the Air Force Academy on a whim, and I tell people if I had done any research into what was going to happen to me when I showed up, I probably wouldn't have gone. But then when I showed up, I had already signed up, and I was like, I'm not going to be the bitch who goes back and goes, I quit because it was too hard. And so I really almost forced myself into a position where I had to succeed. And I'm really grateful that I did that because I think I would have psyched myself out with all the like psycho shit that was going to happen to me. So I think I honestly think it's better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I didn't know a lot going in, and my recruiter definitely was less than forthcoming, right? Like for example, I still remember this week 0. Like this dude is like, dude, it's only 12 weeks. It's only 12 weeks. You can make it. Like just talking about basic, right? You get this week 0. Like in processing, and I'm like, right out of the gate, I'm already mad at this motherfucker, right? Like I'm like, all right, cool. But little did I know, man, like everything that dude told me was pretty much when my recruiter was I walked in and said I'm ready to join though, so he didn't really have to do a whole lot.
No,
right?
he didn't have to sell you. At least he got you into the job that you asked for.
No, I went to MEPS and basically went to MEPS and was like, I want to do Intel. And if anything, a fun lesson for those of you out there who may be thinking about joining Intel, don't listen to anything your recruiter says about that fucking form, right? Like just fill it out with all of the information. Like if he's like, oh yeah, no. If you have friends like from like back in the day, they're like, no, don't put those guys. Like put like these people, like, and he would like recommend, like, you're like,
Uh-huh.
no, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Just, it was definitely bad advice all around from
Okay.
recruiters.
Well, be careful when you're signing up for spooky stuff, kids
Yeah.
out there who are
Yeah.
listening to the post-military. If you're listening to a podcast about people getting out of the military before you get into the military, you're trying to be a very prepared person. So good on
Yeah.
you. So
If you are that person, don't do it. That's all I gotta say about that.
oh man.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's definitely it's intense for sure. So you joined in 2006, and what year did you get out?
2012.
2012. Okay.
Yeah. So I joined for
And
6 years and did 1 re-enlistment.
and when did you know that it was your time to close out that chapter?
Shortly after I became an NCO, to be honest. Like, when I got in and I was a junior enlisted, it was pretty easy and it was okay, like the quality of life, right? Like, you get in, you're just trying to learn as much as you can, adapt and overcome, like, figure shit out. And by the time you get to through AIT and you survive and you got your MOS and you're going to your first duty station and stuff like that, the amount of freedom you have relative to civilians is like next to none. But the amount of freedom you have coming out of AIT, Advanced Individual Training, is fucking unfathomable. Right? Like, I had drill sergeants when I went through AIT. So when I got to my duty station and snapped a parade rest for every fucking NCO, not that kind of stuff, like when you get to your duty station that you're just not expecting, is like, I don't know, man, it was crazy. So lower enlisted life, I felt I still believed in the mission. I still believed in what we were doing, right? I was still getting spun up on counterterrorism. I was still understanding how the intelligence machine works, right? So there was very cool shit to get involved. And I think that by the time, because I made E5 after 2 years and 2 months. And then right after that, I re-enlisted, which extended me out to 6 years, right? So at that point, now I'm an NCO and I'm starting to see how leadership decisions trickle down. I'm starting to see a little bit more of how senior NCOs behave. I'm starting to see a little bit more of the leadership decisions. And I'm starting to see, especially, and this is, I want to call this out too. This is very specific to an intel unit, right? Like, I think a lot of people that I've worked with who came from special forces always told me, like, you would have done better in a tactical unit because you grew up a knucklehead playing hockey. Like, you're more of an elbows in football and hanging out and drinking beer kind of a guy than when in the intel. And this is a generalization, right? Like, in intel, it's really not that so much as it is like, fucking nerds, man. Like, it's just like it is what it is. But and I think that the signal to me was once I started to realize all that stuff, you start to see the things that are really wrong with the military, and you start to see the bad leaders, right, that stick around because they get to flex on people when they were fucking nerds in high school, or just you start to see bad decision making play out. And this is where it breaks down to essentially, I saw 3 types of leaders, right, in the military. There were those who were trying to impress the people above them, and they would shit on the people below them. We need a parade detail for Saturday. The fucking governors come. Oh yeah, my squad will do that. Fuck that guy. First of all, guys like that can eat a whole bag of dicks, right? Because nobody wants to do that, but that guy wants to get promoted before peers and all the other fun stuff, right? So that's one type of leader. At least he's trying, though, right? And if you're gung ho, like that lower enlisting, they'll usually fall in line and usually can still have a pretty good quality of life. But then you got the leaders who just are broken and just don't fucking care anymore. They've seen so much bullshit. They tried to ice skate uphill so many times. They've seen the bureaucracy and the hypocrisy, and they're just like, I don't fucking care. I'm here to survive my 20 and get my pension, right? So they're not helping anybody above them or below them. They're just a part of the machine. And then there's the people who really care about their Joes, right? They take the NCO creeds seriously. Accomplishment of my mission and the welfare of my soldiers, right? Like, will shield my Joes from whatever bullshit's coming down, right? Oh, you need somebody to police call the fucking front of the thing? Nah, I've got half of my Joes are on mission right now, and the other half are sleeping because they were on mission last night. So we're not fucking doing it. The leaders who do that end up getting shit on, right? And then you're a problem child, right? And so, like, you start to see more and more of that, and you start to see the bullshit, and then you actually deploy, and you're like, oh, this is how the fucking army's supposed to be. Okay. Grown-ups doing grown-up shit to bad guys. I got it. This is fantastic. But, like, when you're forming up at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning to go run with some old man who's got something to prove, right? And you're getting yelled at because your fucking socks aren't the right. I'm just like, dude, if I'm wearing black socks, white socks, they're a little bit above or below my ankle, I don't fucking care, man. So that kind of shit just gets to you. But once you realize you're ineffectual, and especially being struck at a strategic unit, I was like, dude, I'm done. I'm done with this shit so hard. It was almost immediately after becoming an NCO.
It's definitely one of those things where as you get engaged with I think looking back on it is like the problem with the peacetime military. And honestly, I think that this is a societal problem, and it just reflects itself in certain ways in the military. Is if you're in a place that's super chill and you don't have real problems to deal with, for whatever reason, people decide to pick new problems. They make problems because people want to
Manufacture hardships.
manufacture. Yeah, they want to manufacture struggles so they feel like they're solving a problem. Or if you're in a metrics based organization, you need to have fix something so you can show career growth.
Yeah. That
And
got me the metrics based stuff. Right when I got back from deployment, I was actually going to take that skill set and roll it into another cool deployment that my first sergeant was working on. But then the fucking bean counters at S1 were like, no, we need this many NCOs to have gone to BNOC. So you just got back from deployment, but we're going to send you to BNOC. And I'm like, at that point, I already told them, I was like, I'm out of here. Do not send me to this. Like, no. Yeah, it was crazy. We'll get to all that.
when you knew that you were fed up, that you knew you wanted to bounce, what did you what was that like for you? That preparation to leave? Did you put any work into it, or were you just kind of like, fuck this
Ooh.
noise, I need to get out of here as quickly as possible?
That one pretty much, right? Like it became, and here's the thing, right? Like I've watched some of the other post-military podcasts, and you've had some exceptional individuals on here, right?
Mhm.
Like one of my mentors was on here, James Deedle, right? Like,
Yeah,
sorry, always say Deedle,
yeah,
just yeah, I think I kind of
it's
fucked with
okay.
him, but yeah, super squared away, super shit together. A lot of them are officers, right? Coming out with college degrees and squared away, like, dude, like a lot of what I did was reactionary, right? And like I reactionary got into the military because I wasn't really succeeding. And then I found a way to really succeed, right? Like I was really good at intel. I was really good at digital network intelligence. I was working at NSA, like super fucking cool mission, right? High speed, get it. I can train other people because I'm pretty personable. I can speak well. So like naturally that just goes into teaching. So then now I become a force multiplier, right? So I don't know, man. Like I really was digging it until I wasn't. And then it was like all piles up. Like I remember re-enlisting that first time and looking down the barrel of 4 years again, essentially, because I re-enlisted at the end of my 2 years because my re-enlistment window opened and then extended for another two. And I remember just thinking, can I do this for another 4 years? And just being like, dude, there's so many things that I really dislike. So I started keeping a list. Like, and that's what really cemented it. And I think the list is important for me because the Army opens your re-enlistment window 2 years out, and they only got to catch you feeling hula one day out of 700 or 820 some days or whatever it is.
You don't even have to be who you just. I think I don't even think. I think if you really asked people in the like people at a strategic level in the military, they wouldn't even tell you like, oh yeah, you're doing it for the service of the nation. I think they would say people stay because it's safe, and we do a really
Exactly.
good job of keeping, like you said, I like the junior enlisted experience. I think is really awesome, and I think you really liked it because you were really looking for like abstraction and then focus, and it
And I was
abstract.
also an alcoholic. And in the Army, that's the fucking name of the game, dude. We
Yeah,
dance
you
every
can just
night.
drink.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
just all
so
the and I joined when
yeah,
I was 21, right? So
yeah,
like
exactly,
that
and
was smart. That little did I know. I would watch people get in trouble for drinking underage. If you're going to join the military, that would be my one piece of advice. Wait till you're old enough to drink because you will need to drink, need to drink when you're dealing with this bullshit. And if you can't and you do anyway, you're going to put yourself in a situation that you really don't want to be in. And that fucking sucks. Seeing good Joes get kicked out for having beers, right? Like we knew this kid from Georgia and he was a drinker. He started drinking beer at 14, right? Like it's different down there. Yeah, and this kid joined at 18 and at 19 he was drinking beers and he got fucking in trouble and it was like the end of the world, right? I'm like, dude, when I was 20, I don't even want to think about the dumb shit I was doing, right? So
They take it very seriously. And there's not a lot of things that can really derail you, especially when you're like in E1 through E3.
Yeah.
Drinking in the dorms is one of those things. And
Yeah.
so I definitely get that. But yeah, going back to what we were saying, I really do think they bank on the fact that the military is, you're always going to get paid. You're
Mhm.
always going to have health care.
Yep.
Someone's always going to tell you what to do.
Yep.
And
We
it's,
won't let you fail.
yeah,
Won't let you
exactly.
quit,
Yep.
right? Like
And
those are
so,
super things. And then it double down when you have a family, right?
yep.
So if you get married and have a child, yeah, we're going to deploy you, but we're going to make sure that your family's taken care of and blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah. A lot of people buy into that garbage. And I say garbage because if you've ever tried to use TRICARE or gone to the base for any kind of healthcare, like
Yeah.
you can buy Advil at Walgreens. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
TRICARE for that. No,
Yep.
that's a
Yeah.
joke, but
No, it's kind
it's
of
not great.
it's a system that's designed to not be easily understood, because if it was really easy, then everyone would use it and then the healthcare system would be inundated. And that's why people are like, socialized healthcare would be sick. And I'm like, as someone who's been a member of the only socialized healthcare system in America, I can tell you that it's not so sick. There's some cool parts, but I don't think it's not what you think it's going to be, for all those like starry-eyed folks out there, for sure. But
There's ups
yeah,
and downs, right? I was
yeah.
stationed at Lackland, and they had the premier, like, optometry center there that does, like, the LASIK and the PRK.
Mhm.
So, got the hook up with that.
Sure.
Got PRK'd up, right?
Yep.
Great vision, but,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, the, everything else pretty much was awful.
So,
Never
yeah,
go to an army dentist. Just knock them out. Just fucking take them out. Don't go. They're gonna jack you up.
so you said you're flying by the seat of your pants when you decide to get out. So what happened in your transition? What did that look like?
Yeah, so and it's interesting, right? Because I decided to get out for a couple different reasons. A, because of the leadership thing that we just talked about.
Mhm.
And the army's not really what you think it is in the long run, right? You are fucking expendable. The army does not give a shit about you. I don't care what anybody tells you. I don't care how green you are. I don't care if Audie Murphy descends from the sky and starts telling you about the importance of changing your socks. Like, dude, they don't fucking care about you, man. It's just I don't know. So between that and then also I told you when I got out, I contracted an NSA. Well, that was making significantly more money, right? So that was the other thing. You don't get paid a lot as a soldier. You really don't. And then when you're training civilians to do your job and they're getting paid twice, three times what you're getting paid, it's very difficult to stay in. And then the other thing, the third thing was the list that I mentioned earlier, right? And that was a list of like mandatory fun days, right? Like remember those days where you have to go to the battalion picnic or the squadron picnic and you have to dress a certain, and you have to say hello to the commander's wife and you have to eat your fucking jello or whatever. That was one of them, right? Formations at 5 a.m. Hate that every time it happens. 5-mile runs. That like all of these things went on the list, right? Ruck marches, the healthcare system, like all the army dentists. And I just start thinking and doing the math, right? Okay, cool. We're basically treated like shit. Nobody really cares about us. We're not getting paid anything. I could do this for a lot more money and still help the nation, right? I'd still be doing the same mission. I'd be in the same building doing the same thing, just not getting paid like a chump for it. And so it basically turned me bitter to a point where I was like, okay, cool. We're definitely getting fucked over on this. We're definitely getting the short end of the stick, right? And then you see NCOs walking around without combat patches, right? You're like, you're an E7. You've been in the military 17 fucking years, right? You were in pretty much like when 9/11 happened, and how have you not been deployed? Right? Like I'm an E5 who's been in 3.5 years and I've got fucking one deployment under my belt, right? And then after having gone and seeing how the army's supposed to operate and then coming back, I was fucking done, bro. I was like, nope, I'm not doing any of this shit anymore. I was like, I'm not. It was crazy, right? So at that point, I had become a squad leader. And remember how I told you about the 3 types of leaders? I was the fuck big army leader. Like I was the guy who would tell you, all right, cool. You want to get promoted from E3 to E4? Here's what we have to do on paper to get it done in your fucking primary zone. Or if you want to go to the NCO board, I will prep you. We're going to have the most shit hot NCO take you because everybody fucking thinks I'm an asshole, right? And that was even when I was in the military, which is tough to do. I guess it's easier to do it in intel unit. I swear I would have fit right in. I would have done something like truly legitimate. But anyway, and then for the last like several years I was in, I became like I am now, essentially. Like just aggressive, just default aggressive. And just fuck you. What are you going to do, man? Sergeant Hacke, why weren't you at PT this morning? Because I was in the arms room fucking helping Bravo Company out. Why don't you stay in your fucking lane? Just biting people's heads off for no reason, right? And being that salty NCO. But I knew I was done with it. I knew I wasn't going anywhere with it based on the fact that there was no money in it, right? So I meant to do the calculation before this, but in 2009, we deployed and we were working 12-hour days. We would literally do 12-hour days in the fucking just like going nuts, right? Like trying, and we were managing different things, right? Like I don't want to get too deep into it because it was actually a combat support team that NSA sent to support the fucking mission out there, which is super awesome of them. And we did some super interesting things, but it was 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, no exceptions. And since I was single, right, you get hazardous duty pay, and then you get, was it danger zone pay? Combat pay. Yeah, hazardous duty and combat zone, which is an extra $300 a month. So like when you shook it all out, it was under $3 an hour. I was like, I'm in Iraq making less than $3 an hour, and I'm like, what am I doing, dude? It was the most danger I'd ever been in, like by a mile, right? I'm a fobbit too, right? Let's get that out of the way right now. I was not kicking doors or fucking launching 203s. Some people on my team, like when we got issued our firearms and stuff, they didn't even take their tags off and shit. They're like, just lean them up against the wall in the skiff, man. If it gets to the point where we have to shoot people, we're fucked. We're not even going to worry about that. We've got shit to destroy. Like we're not, that's, so I'm like, okay, cool, right? Little did I know, within the first 2 weeks I was there, like 3 people had died from indirect fire attacks. So that'll increase the pucker factor. But yeah, just, I don't know, man. It was seeing all of that downrange and then like seeing shit back home and like in a strategic unit. I was like, nah, I'm done with this.
I think disillusionment can happen anywhere. And it's once you've made that decision, it's once you see something in a specific way, it's almost impossible to overcome that. And I think at that point, I think the smart thing that you did is you left when you could, because the worst people in the world are the ones that are like, fuck the military, I hate this fucking place. And then you go, so why have you been in for 17 years?
Because I get to boss people around. And the longer I stay, the more respect I'm given.
Yeah.
Not that I earn.
Yeah.
More respect I'm given, right? Time and rank, time and service, right? It literally, they fucking say it right there. The longer you're in, the fucking better you are. So that's why, and that's why I think so many people who are fucking assholes nerds stay in, because they know if they get out, it's over for them, dude. Nobody's going to put up with their shit.
Yeah, it's tough. Shit. It's more of a game of attrition than anything else. And like, you just have to have, I don't know, just that gut. You just have to gut it out. And I think people do it for a lot of weird reasons. But so when you got out, first thing you did was went to work as a contractor for the NSA.
Yeah.
What was?
Well, it was an interesting transition first off too. So
tell me about the interesting.
yeah. So this gets weird. So I deployed and came back, and then they sent me to BNOC, right? But as I was deployed,
what is BNOC, by the way?
Oh, basic non-commissioned officer course.
Okay, cool.
It's just like they go and teach you how to.
Yeah, it's like NCO Academy at the.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yep. Exactly right. Oh, shit, I forgot what I was going to say now.
They sent you to BNOC. You didn't want to go. You were about to punch. So, what happened?
Oh, right. That's right. And I had actually already submitted my promotion packet. So I was wearing E5 at the time, and my promotion packet got picked up by Big Army. I had enough points. My battalion commander had fucking signed it. So I learned this while I'm at BNOC. Right? So I'm like, cool, right? But they're like, well, we're technically not your unit, so you should wait till you get home and your unit will pin your rank, right? I'm like, cool, that's fine. So BNOC was like 3.5 months, right? So I'm fucked off in Arizona for 3.5 months learning. And it's funny, learning all of this SIGINT shit. I had just come back from a SIGINT deployment, an NSA SIGINT deployment. I was instructing most of that class. I was an E5 at BNOC, teaching all of these E6s what SIGINT's supposed to be about. And like, still, I don't even want to get into it. This is what I'm talking about, dumping my purse out, right? Like, everybody, like, this one E6, man, this motherfucker, I'll never forget this motherfucker. He was the sergeant major's driver, right? That's why he was an E6. The motherfucker didn't know shit about SIGINT, but he always wanted to be like, you need for raid rest. I'm like, dude, I called him a staff private one day. We fucking got into it. Yeah, it was bad. I come down on orders for Cyber Command. They're like, hey, you've gone to, they had this thing called, oh my goodness, what the hell was it called now? BDNA, Basic Digital Network Analysis course that was taught at the Naval Center for Information Dominance in Corey Station in Pensacola. I took that, and it gives you a special MOS identifier. It's like a Delta 6. So my MOS would be 98 Charlie 20 or 30, depending on my rank at the time, and then Delta 6, meaning like this dude knows how to do computer network exploitation stuff, right? So yeah, so that was really interesting. Got that special designation. And because of the Delta 6 designation, that's why I came down on orders to Cyber Command.
Were you going to incur like an additional commitment if you took those orders?
100%.
Yeah.
I would have had to extend for a year and
or
re-enlist. And in order to re-enlist, since I was at 6 years, it has to take you into your next re-enlistment zone. So I'd have had to re-enlist for 10. Yeah. So at that point, they're basically saying all in, right? If you do this, if you want to go to Cyber Command and you re-enlist to do it, it's going to take you to your 10-year mark. Now you're halfway. And anybody who gets out of the military after you're on halfway is like,
it's crazy.
Like, why? Why did you even do the first half? Like, you should have got all way before that.
Yeah.
So, like, I kind of felt like put to the test, like, all right, like, your military career will go, like, if you wanted to, because you're going to Cyber Command, right? Which is, like, necessarily supposed to be the spot to be. Remember, this is 2010, 2011.
Yeah. Cyber
right?
Command was like the shit at the time.
It was just starting.
Yeah,
it was just starting.
That was that new. For sure.
Yeah, and then I reasoned, and I talked to a couple buddies, and I was like, man, dude, they're like, it's a good assignment. They're like, but just realize too, you've been in for 6 years. You're an E5 trying to pin as E6. You've never been a recruiter. You've never been a drill sergeant. You've never been a platoon sergeant. What do you think you're going to do when you get there to this brand new unit? And I'm just like, it's going to happen, dude. I'm going to go to Cyber Command and I'm going to come down on recruiting duty here. I'm going to come down on drill sergeant duty here. I'm going to be a platoon sergeant, or I'm going to fucking any other number of big green weenies that would come flying out of left field, right? So, yeah, just not really looking to do that. And extending for a year and a half after I'd already just had my list of like shit that I carried around in my pocket. I was totally not going to do it. Totally not going to do it. So I ended up signing a declination of continued service statement. I wore E5 rank the rest of the time I was in the military, even though I was in E6. My ID said E6. My DD-214 says E6. Everybody at the battalion knew I was in E6. But my company would not pin me. I also didn't get an end of tour award or any of that shit. They were just like, you want to get out? Fuck you, bro. For real, fuck you. You get flagged. No favorable actions from S1. So I couldn't go to any additional schools, right? So if I want to school up for my contractor gig, they're like, nope, you're not doing any of that anymore. After they just sent me to BNOC. I was like, I didn't want to go to the fucking school in the first place that you just made me go to. And now you're telling me that you can't send me into schools. I'm like, I'll tell you what, man. At that point, I was like, fucking done. I'm like, all right, cool. But by the last month, man, I was like not doing PT. I was like, nah, fucking saluting people. I was just like, dude, what are you going to do? Fire me? It'd be shorter to just wait until I'm fucking out now. Like, it would take you longer to detain me to fire me. So I was so fucking done, man. I was so fucking done. And that brings up the one, like, I have a couple notes over here. There's a few things that I wanted to bring up. This is my first one, right? The biggest thing that really fucked with me was, I call it finish lining. Like I said, I was so done. Like, I was like, as long as I can make it to the end of this without getting fucking a dishonorable discharge or fucking freaking out or somebody or like just totally blowing this, right? Like, that's where my headspace was. I'd already gone on deployment, gotten a real wound the fuck up on counterterrorism missions for NSA, came back, had a very strong drinking problem. I drink every night, right? And then wake up and then go do this mission and just wasn't really feeling any of the military life anymore. Like, bad leadership, poor support, mental health stigmas. Everybody thinks drinking's the only way to deal with shit. I was like, I am fucking done. And in my head, I was like, as long as I can make it out, I'll be all right. As long as I can make it to the end of this fucking enlistment, dude, without anything bad happening, I'll marathon. The finish line, right? But little did I know that after that happened, that was the fucking start of the horror movie, dude. Within 3 months of that, I had my first panic attack. I had gone to the fucking hospital, thought my fucking heart was gonna explode, had no idea what was happening. My blood pressure was through the fucking roof. Dude, just like a full-on spiral. Was drinking more than I had ever drank. It was not a fucking good look at all. Yeah, not good. And it was because I thought that I passed it, right? And then you get a job as a contractor working at NSA, making almost 6 figures, right? Like, you made it. You're done. You're successful now. Got it. Cool. No, not at all. I was coming home from getting my laundry one day and had a full-on fucking panic attack. And that was it, dude. It was fucking 911, the whole shooting match, dude.
I think that we in the military, internally and externally, we do a really bad job. We do a disservice to those who have yet to get out by setting standards for people that are really unrealistic in terms of success criteria. If you make a lot of money, like the narrative that I bought into when I got out was, if you nail the VA paperwork and you get, I'm in cyber as you were too, and so you've heard the same narrative. If you get out and you make a kick, you get into a FANG company where you're making great money, you're going to be happy because you've made a successful military transition. And I bought into that really hard. So I did both of those things. And then I distinctly remember 6 months later, I'm like, I checked myself into mental health with the VA because I was like, I'm fucking really depressed. And I didn't know why. Just like you said, I was like, but I did the things. I did the things that everyone said would make me happy.
Exactly.
And I'm not happy. And
I'm not okay.
No.
It's hard to realize why, right?
Yeah.
My first thing was, nothing's fucking wrong with me. I'm a non-commissioned officer in the United States Army, right? Or I very recently was.
Yeah.
Who's been on combat deployments, who fucking does pretty good on his PT test. I'm a fucking machine, first of all. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And then it's like, looking back on it now, I'm just like, how fucking naive was that? Like,
For
how
sure.
fucking crazy. And just to give people an understanding, like, since then, this is over 10 years ago now that all of that happened. I've quit drinking. I'll be 10 years sober July 31st.
Congratulations.
This month. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I still go to the VA, still take medication, still go to counseling. Fucking talk about that shit every day. My wife is a saint. She fucking helps me through this shit every day. And it's never gotten easier. It's never gotten easier. To your point, right? I've been out of the military since 2012. And since then, I've held it. All right. So the last job I had was in Amazon, making really good money, right? Like pretty high 6 figures, right? Like pretty high, like close to $1 million. But like the job before that I had was 6 figures. The job before that I had was 6 figures. And in all of those positions, I have fucking struggled so hard, so hard. One of the big things I struggle with now is, after having worked at NSA, and after having worked counterterrorism and really peeked behind the curtain and seen how shit works and see who people really are, like, I think everybody is by default guilty. Everybody's guilty until proven innocent in my book. Everyone. Like, it's crazy, dude. I've fostered this attitude of everybody's a piece of shit for some reason, to some degree. And it's only a matter of time before it affects you. So, like, why even be friends with people? Like, why even go and see people who are fucking shitty, right? Like, it's not a good attitude. And it's definitely something that I've struggled with. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know where that was going.
It's very interesting because you're, on one hand, you have those feelings, but on the other hand, you have a lot of self-awareness of those feelings. So I don't feel like it's that bad, because I think a lot of people, I don't want to sound like I'm
I
making
love that
light
you feel that way.
of your
I
struggle.
love that you feel that way. It's
Well,
all
here's
good,
the
man.
thing. I think a lot of people think what you think. They just couldn't tell somebody that on a podcast. They're just angry. There's a lot of stuff underneath that anger, but they've never taken the time to understand, why am I angry? And then they've never defined themselves to say, well, I spent a lot of time in counterterror, so I've really seen like the evils that exist in the world to a degree that most, especially in America, we're so blessed to live in this country. You don't know what kind of garbage is out there. And
it's unreal, man.
I talk to people all the time, and I'm like, it is amazing, and we don't talk about this enough, I don't think. It's amazing that we live in a country where there is a reasonable chance that you could live your entire life and die in America and never see an act of violence in your entire life.
Yeah.
There is a literal reasonable chance that could happen to you.
I agree with that.
And that's beautiful. But if you don't have an appreciation for that, then you don't realize how rare that is. And then you go do counterterror and you're like, this shit is fucked. And in my time doing cyber stuff as well, like you peek behind a couple of top secret curtains and you go, like, this is
well,
crazy.
Never gonna see that.
Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't even like touching crazy intel, counter-terror missions, none of that crazy stuff. And
there's a quote somebody says, and I'm so bad with remembering this type of stuff, right? But it says something about if you stare into the abyss long enough, it stares back, right? And that quote is meant to say that if you interact with evil and you interact with people who are trying to harm other people and you deal with those things in a swift and appropriate manner, right? That rubs off on you. You get dirty when you go into the dirt, right? And I think that I've taken a lot of this stuff apart and tinkered with it in my own way, right? And just because I have to find healthy ways to process things. That's why I take all this stuff apart, right? So I think it's really interesting. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with talking about that kind of like horror and stuff. Like when you stare into the abyss, it stares back into you and you create a version of yourself that's tainted, that's dirty, right? Like that is willing and has done these things that you would consider evil if someone else did them. Right. And so now what's really interesting, and I think this might be a small contributor to like the better suicide thing. Now you go home and you're with your family, right? And you still got that dirt and that ick and that filth and those deeds, right? Like on you. And you start to realize I'm the most dangerous person around my family. If I really want to kill a bad guy, like, dude, like deal with that shit when you're fucking half a bottle in, or deal with that shit when you're really angry at somebody. Like it fucking creeps in weird ways, man.
I think that you're completely right. And the one thing that I'll add on to that and why I think that you are such a cool story is I think the number one reason why people kill themselves out of the military is because they lack self-awareness. And what I mean by that is you are able to boil down a lot of what you're feeling and you're able to separate it and say, this was what I was, but now I'm working on it, which implies that you understand that you're phasing out of who you were in the military and you're becoming something else. If you don't have that self-awareness, then you'll just say, I'm dirty, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed. And if you don't have the self-awareness to, like you said, tinker and take these things apart, then you don't think I'm in a phase and I'm moving through these things. You just go, I guess I'm sad, depressed, angry, or dirty for the rest of my life. And then you just kill yourself because that is an easier resolution than being those things for the rest of your life. And I just don't think people take the time to realize I'm not these things. I'm just going through them right now. And I think it's a very specific distinction.
And yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of other military services do a better job of helping people understand that there's processes you can do to clean that dirt, to account for those things, to put those things away, and to cleanse yourself before you go back into society, right? Like, I've had some pretty interesting conversations with folks. Certain things have stuck out in my mind. And I remember specifically when I first came out, like, my communication was so bad. In the sense that it was incredibly direct, right? Like, this version you're seeing now has been polished over like 10 years, right? Like, so I can still be a little bit more charming now. I can laugh. I can feather things in, but it used to be like, I don't understand this. You need to tell me why. And they'd be like, all right, first of all, I don't know why you're talking to me like this. And I'd be like, I don't understand why you're saying this. And this is like cousins and family. It's just like way too direct, right?
How did you get to a point where you knew you needed to work on stuff? Like, what was that? Because I think that I don't think a lot of people even go, I need help. So what did you...
There was a day, right? So going back to like how I was before the military, like I've always been, I don't want to say like a nervous kid or like a sky is falling kid, but I've always been very cautious and observant, always adapt, right? So every so often I'll pull back and I'll change and then I'll try new things. And I think a lot of people do that. And maybe they're aware of it, maybe they aren't. But I think that changing, right, and that ability to constantly iterate is super important, because if you're not doing that, a lot of really bad things can happen, right? Like you get stuck in certain thought patterns and things like that, and that's just really unfortunate and really terrible. So like I used to do a lot of changing, right, and observing. So like I've always done that introspectively, like personally, and tried to do that. But I think that with this one specifically, it became an all the time thing when I realized that I had to quit drinking, right? And I told you a little bit earlier, July 31st, 2013 was the last day that I drank. And that next day I went into the VA and I was like, look, like I'm going to fucking die, right? Like literally I cannot continue to drink like this. And we touched on being a contractor after working. Long story short, like when I worked at NSA as a contractor, as a civilian, they do a background check, like a lifestyle polygraph. And they were like, thank you, but no thank you, right? Because at that time I was drinking so fucking heavily. Like I was a liability to myself and others, right? So it was at that point that I had effectively, they did not renew my clearance, which is, my clearance was getting ready to expire. You re-adjudicate every 5 years. And they were like, we're not going to re-adjudicate your clearance. So once I found that out, they basically were like, walked me off the mission, and then that was it. Like, you're now no longer at the NSA. They hand me a little pamphlet. Here's your lifetime obligations. You're never allowed to fucking say anything about any of this shit. If somebody else says something, you have to report it to us immediately. And I can't remember what the third one was, because fuck them. What are they gonna? Yeah. I mean, no, just kidding. Don't put that on the fucking thing. I was just
they're listening.
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You're in
Speaking
the lamp.
into the light picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was fucking crazy, right? So like now I got my declination of continued service in the Army. They basically said, you don't want to go to Cyber Command and extend. Fuck you. I was like, cool. I'm going to be a contractor anyway. So I went out to Maryland. I was fucking pretty much by myself. Didn't have my support system. Was drinking all the time. And then lost that job essentially, right? Because I lost my clearance. And now the whole thing that I had been working towards over the last 8 years is gone. Like I'm no longer allowed to use the skills in the places that I use them. And so that was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going home now to pick myself up and figure out what the fuck's going on, right? So that was part of it, but that wasn't the end of the spiral, right? Like I kept drinking. I was actually a fucking snowboard instructor for $8 a lesson or something, some shit like that. That winter after that happened in the summer. So I came home to Illinois and did that shit and just like fucking struggled, dude. Just was in my own head. I was doing art at the time. Like I was trying to express how I was feeling, doing these fucking projects that were just like crazy, man. Like making different lamps, and it was like different pieces of artwork that were like MC Escher-esque, and it was like I was just fucking really struggling, man. But one of my buddies that I grew up with was a tattoo artist, and he suggested that, and it really helped me start to express myself. But the drinking was still heavy, and the fucking not know what I was gonna do. And then eventually I just drank too much. And I just knew, like, when I woke up that day, I was like, if I don't quit doing this, I'm gonna be fucking dead. I'm gonna die. That's all there is to it, right? Whether or not I fucking kill myself or whether or not I literally drink myself to death, that's what's gonna happen. And that was 10 years ago. And I went to the VA and I talked to, it was like an OEF liaison or something like when you don't know what you need, you talk to one of these people based on which war you were in or whatever, and they'll fucking help you out, right? It was kind of wild. And I met the sweetest fucking lady, man. I have her name written down somewhere. I need to find that. I need to see how she's doing. But we just sat and we jammed for an hour and a half, and she was like asking, and she was telling me about other veterans and what they've done. And basically, then we went down to, I lucked out. I lived really close to one of the best VAs in the country. because it's right next to the naval base, right, where they train all the trainees and shit. So I basically went down to the alcohol treatment facility. They had a fucking inpatient facility right there. And so they were like, all right, we have two options. You can either do outpatient, which is you go home now, and then the next time we have a fucking cycle kickoff, you come back and we do that. Or you do inpatient, and we're going to take you right now, and we're going to take your shit, and we're going to evaluate you. So I was like, outpatient. So they were like, cool, whatever, come back. We'll let you know when the program kicks off. And so that was when I decided I needed to quit drinking and I needed help. And I went to get that help, but that help didn't arrive for another 2.5 to 3 weeks. Like the program didn't start for 2.5 weeks. They gave me a counselor, set an appointment up for 2 weeks out or something like that. And then for the next 2 weeks, I white knuckled, like quitting drinking. It was pretty rad, bro. it was not fun. Got the shakes really bad. Not like DTs, I don't think, right? Like I was reading some pretty fucking horrible shit about that. I don't think it was all that, but like definitely just like nervous system very fucky. Like anytime I'd eat anything sugar related, because like when you drinking 18 beers a night, like when your body gets sugar, it goes, oh, okay, we're getting ready to get a lot of sugar. We're getting ready to get 18 pork chops worth of sugar, right? Pork chop in every can. So it starts creating insulin, like a lot of insulin, like and it creates like a rubber band effect where now when I wasn't drinking like that anymore, my body didn't know that. So I'd drink something normal and it would fucking throw all this insulin at me and I get super sluggish and feel like shit, right? Just the whole recovery was so fucked up. I didn't know any of this. I was just discovering all of this on the fly, right? And you know what's crazy is I was so unsuccessful in that time, like where I was trying to do that, to quit drinking. Like I could not have held a job. It was like I had a support system in my parents, right? So fucking super lucky there. But I get why veterans like bottom the fuck out and just can't function, right? And I've been to college. I was in military intelligence, right? Like I'm not a stupid person. Like I can get a job doing stuff, right, somewhere. But the thing is your nervous system is fucking just fried. Like the way I look at it is, and the way it was explained to me actually in that program is like when you drink, you're putting on a winter jacket, right? Like you got insulation from all of these feelings that you're feeling, right? And the more you drink, the more layers you put on, right? And then when you stop drinking and you take those jackets off, you're now way colder than you were when you started before you put the jackets on. Because relatively, you don't have any fucking skills now to deal with that. Like, especially, so like drinking really fucked me, dude. And I don't want to say it was the culture of alcoholism in the army and this, that, and the other, because I was already a pretty heavy drinker. I went in ballistic, but did not help. Worst fucking shit ever, man.
What kept you going? What switch flipped where you finally said, I need to stop this, and then you actually did it? Because like heavy drinking for your entire life and then just like going cold turkey is a really impressive thing, because getting alcohol is not hard, especially if you're an outpatient
everywhere.
Especially if you're in outpatient treatment. So like what changed? Like why did what switch got flipped in TR's head that allowed you to do that?
I really just think, dude, it was the realization that, look, man, like how you feel right now, you're going to feel like this when you fucking die, dude. This is it. This is the rest of it. And it's not that long, man. Remember all that cool shit you used to do? Fucking dude, like I used to play high. Like I grew up playing high. Fucking love playing high, right? Like I love teaching folks. Like I love breaking computer shit, right? Like there's a lot of dope things to do that aren't getting fucked up and being hungover. So it was just like, I'm done doing this, right? It's just, I don't know. And I will say the one thing I'll caveat, right? And I hope none of my future employers watch this and shit, but anyway, weed is incredibly helpful, right? Like that was huge. It was one of those things where it was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Am I trading one bad thing for another, right? Am I just swapping things, right? One vice for another. But when you look at the overall effect, right? Like my therapist called it harm reduction, right? Like he's like, you're trying to engage in harm reductive behavior, which tells me that you've given up, right? Like to speak to what you're saying, you don't want to be like this. You don't want to die. And I think it's really just a decision, right? You either can or you can't. You either want to be here or you don't. Like I remember one time I saw something. This dude named Camus is like a philosopher. And his whole thing is like suicide driven. It's very weird, right? Like I saw something said, should I go have a cup of coffee today, or should I kill myself? And his whole point of living is like any one thing that you have that has any value to you is a reason to live. So it's like his whole thing is you could literally do anything in the whole myriad of things. And there are myriads of good things. Go out and do one of those. Or you can kill yourself, you fucking asshole. But I didn't understand that at first. It came across very like dark and morbid.
Like
right?
it's very
But,
it's a very morbid version of gratitude.
It is. But then when you embrace it, you realize now you compare every single thing. And instead of comparing like, oh, is this pineapple better than this orange? It's, well, I like pineapple some days. I like oranges. Well, is this pineapple better than blowing your fucking head off? Yeah, it's a lot better than that. Cool. Then enjoy it. Like, it's almost like an armor type philosophy and like a weird, once you understand what he was going for, and or maybe I just misunderstood it and used it to my own benefit. I don't fucking know, but
It seems to have worked. So
yeah. I'm still figuring it out, man. The jury's still out. We'll see.
I think we all are. I don't think anyone's truly got it figured out, and I think that anyone who says they have it figured out is a liar. And
It's crazy.
Yeah,
The analogy I use is just walking across country. It's more like Forrest Gump. All the way across, all the
Running.
way back, all the way
Yeah.
across, halfway
Yep.
back. Like you go so far, right? Like I look back on all the things I've done, 10 years of self-improvement and trying to understand why I think everybody is going to be the worst version of themselves all the fucking time. Like why I feel like I should correct people who are doing things that are like when I first got out of the military, it was like on the spot corrections, man. Like your tires are low, like like shit like that. Like nobody
Yeah.
fucking cares about any of that shit. No, yeah, I don't know. Weird.
So, what, as someone who really, like, I want you to hear this, at least for me, it's really cool to hear how much work you've done to yourself over the past decade of your life. I think it's incredibly impressive, and I think that it's admirable, because I don't like, people don't just do what you did. People don't just go, I'm not going to drink anymore, and then do that shit. Like some people do, but not
Yeah.
a lot of people do that. And so I think that it's impressive. Like
Thank you.
what
I
like
really
take
appreciate that.
yeah, take that for whatever it's worth and take it to the bank for me. But
Mhm.
for people who are either, well, let's split this up into two different things. For people who are out of the military right now, who might be struggling with either something in the realm of mental health, because we all are. Like, I think that everybody in the military goes through some level of identity crisis when they leave, whether you fucking hated it, whether you loved it, whether you got out after your first tour, whether you made it to 30 and got out. Like, we all have some identity crisis that affects our mental health. What would you tell those people? What advice would you give them for working through that struggle?
That's an interesting question. And I think part of me wants to give, I don't want to call it like a canned answer, right? But fight the stigma, right? Have the conversations, like, but not just that, right? Like, one of the things that I took away from the military and being an NCO and then having wrote a lot of justifications for intelligence packages and things like that is if you can justify it to yourself and you can say it with confidence, then fucking do that. Be confident, right? I don't know, man. What was the question again?
What advice would you give to people who are going through mental health issues?
That's right.
Like, what advice would you give them as someone who's been, I'm not saying you're winning every day, but you haven't drank in a
Yeah.
decade, which is
Yeah.
impressive. So what advice would you give to those people who might not have started working on themselves yet?
Extreme honesty is probably the best thing, right? I think being extremely open and honest about your situation, right? And just if you can justify things, right? Like one of the things that like I took from the military is I can say this thing with a degree of confidence because of this, right? So I think that's important to be able to say, I fucking feel this way because I did these things. and I'm not okay with that, and I need help. You can say it in a way that is a statement. I think a lot of people, and I think I was guilty of this too at first, was like, I think I need help. If you say, I think I need help to somebody, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because what the fuck does that mean? It's non-committal, first of all. But no, let's say, and I don't want to put my mom on the spot, but let's use her as an example. If I say to my mom, I think I need help, right? As a combat veteran, as somebody who's an alcoholic, as somebody who is struggling with potential mental health crises, right? Like when I was quitting drinking, I voluntarily gave my firearms up, right? My mom didn't ask me to do that. Nobody asked me to do that. That was part of the thing where I'm like, all right, cool. I realize what kind of fucking murky territory I'm getting. I'm getting ready to quit drinking after having been drinking for I need as much safety, relative safety as I can fucking get, right? I don't know. But just, if you were to say that to somebody, I think I need help. The help I needed was, I need your firearms, battle buddy. I need you to commit to me verbally that you're not going to harm yourself. And I need you to work with me on coming up with a plan to reduce or quit your drink. My mom's not in a position to do that for me. She's seen the symptoms, right? She's not in a position to, physically restrain me or detain me from doing anything, right? She's not in a position to give me that type of sternness that you would need to give me to get me to do those things, right? So I think that my advice to those folks is, if you have issues, be candid first with yourself and then with other people, and don't back down about it. Don't be unclear. You can say, I think my soldier needs to be promoted because I've seen him do this, right? That's an easy statement to make because you're an NCO and you've seen that. Well, now you have to do the same thing, but you have to be able to, look inside and be able to articulate what the problem is, and B, and then say it with some authority. By the time I went in to quit drinking, I was already saying those statements like that. The writing had been on the wall for a long time, right? I'd already lost my fucking clearance because I was drinking too much. Obviously, motherfuckers knew I was drinking too much, and me going, I think I need help. And then me getting fucking talking to the chaplain, or me going to the mental health clinic at NSA. Yeah, that fucking helped. It wasn't until I showed up to the VA and I said, look, I'm going to fucking end up dead if you guys don't get me in a fucking program. And it was still 2.5 weeks until they got me into a program, right? And it was white knuckling it. So it's like, that's the thing. And this is going to be a hot take, right? And I hope fucking everybody picks this up. All these, like, we support veterans, man. Like, all these veterans kill themselves a day. Like, have you ever gotten any kind of phone call from any one of these organizations? Have you ever had a battle check in on you? Have a friend check in on you? Hey, Billy, how you doing today, man? Where are your firearms at? That's a weird conversation to have in the first place, but it's definitely not fucking happening for veterans who are at risk. Period. Full stop. If you got your legs blown off or you came through Fort Sam Houston, yeah, Wounded Warrior Project's going to scoop you up and they're going to help you out. And I fucking think that's great, right? But for all the veterans like you and I who, like, had a quasi fucking tour, or like me, like I said, I was a fucking fobbit, dude. I just fucking sat in my fucking chew or sat in the fucking skiff. And as soon as I heard IDF, I was like, okay, go time, target package time. I'm going to send somebody to fucking come see you, right? Like, that's not like combat arm, but like, still, dude, we're fucked up too, man.
Just dissociation from your purpose or dealing with your demons, like that can look a lot of different ways. And what
For
I
sure.
think what people need to hear is a mental health struggle is relative. And we in the military, we unfortunately are really good at downplaying our shit, because if you upscale your shit, you get taken off the mission. Someone else is going to go in your place. They're going to get fucked, and then you can't give to the team. And so and on top of that, everybody knows someone else in the military who did more hardcore shit or got hurt worse than you
100%.
did, or any of those things. And so you don't want to come out and go, I have problems, because someone who doesn't have feet, or a guy who's part of a unit he was the one dude away from a total team kill, and he's all that's left. And we think about those people and we go, I'm not that. So I need to be okay, because for whatever reason, I'm going to insult the memory of or the service or sacrifice of these people. And that's something I
Definitely.
struggled with for a long time, which was like
Same.
going through all of the medical shit when I had my stroke. I'm like, I had a stroke on a toilet in Biloxi, Mississippi. Like, I didn't get blown up in Afghanistan. I was not overseas. I would like, fuck, my wife was overseas at the time and she was more in danger than me. But now I'm going through all this medical stuff because I had a blood clot go up into my brain. Are you fucking kidding me? And that took me so long to get over because every single time I went to a medical appointment where they're like, let's talk about disability. And I go, it's a fucking ability. Are you kidding me? Like, what? And
Yeah.
like that guilt associated with it was crazy. And then
Yeah.
that's yeah, it's way too easy for us to go, I don't have a problem because I know someone who actually has a problem. And it's
Yep.
like, well, yeah,
There's-
you actually have a problem too.
There's varying levels of it too, right? And the more that I have these conversations with people, the more I realize this is not exclusive to the military. There are traumatic conditions, and you touched on it earlier, right? If you can go live your whole life without seeing traumatic violence or having a very traumatic incident, like that's very rare, right? Like most people are dealing with some form of trauma, whether it be violence induced or whether it be some other kind of abuse, whether any form, right? There's many forms of trauma. And I think that as human beings, we're not engineered to speak about it to other human beings because it's like a survival thing, right? You don't show weakness. It's something that you heard a lot in the generations before us, right? Like you suck it up, you truck it on. And that's something you get in the military too, right? The ranger mentality, just suck it up and drive on. Or like just make it happen, right? That is so not fucking okay. Let's just start there. If you're being autonomous and you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of your family, right? I think that it's important to understand that you have to prioritize that stuff, right? And you have to take care of yourself because if you don't, you're not fully mission capable, right? And I think that's super important. That kind of brings up one other thing I wanted to talk about too. Mission capable. Like, what is your mission? Like, I had to fully adjust my core values when I got out of the military. There were some things like in the Army specifically, like it's loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage, right? So like all of the different things that you expect people to be, right? Like those things don't necessarily apply to you. They don't not necessarily not apply to you. But here's a thing that I wasn't prepared for. Picking and choosing those values and which ones are important to you and ranking them according to importance, right? And now also you're weighing that against family because those values are all centered around country. And now it's so like my first value is self-care, family care. I had to take care of myself so that I can take care of my family so that we can be safe and healthy. And like, it took me years to even understand that the recrafting of that value at its core was important and that I needed to do it. Just crazy, man. So like, I would be cautious to hold on to a lot of those values coming out. Not all of them are bad, right? Integrity, definitely fucking keep that one. Like personal courage, definitely fucking hang out of that one, right? Selfless service, I don't know, man. If I'm out, okay, and here's an argument that I had with one of my buddies who used to be an Army Ranger. Right? We had an active shooter like a year ago, and he carries, right? He always carries. I'm usually carrying, but we had a debate, right? He's got a wife now. I've got a wife and 2 kids. Now, let's say we're at that event, right? It was like a parade or something like that. If you see an active shooter as a soldier and you're armed, you know what time it is. It's time to actively engage that active shooter. This is what we're fucking trained for, right? Like, now you got a wife and kids in the story. Your priority is no longer public safety. It's family safety. If I can retreat from that environment without drawing that gun and making myself a target, that's what I need to be doing, even if I'm armed, even if it could save someone else's life, right? So like understanding those core values and how they change and how they will change what you do at the drop of a hat is important. Because I didn't understand that shit, man. That's why a lot of veterans are still wound the fuck up when they get out, dude. They still think that like they're doing on the spot corrections and they're responsible for shit, right? Crazy. I've got a funny story about that actually. There there was when I first got out of doing the contracting and the military thing, when I first got back into doing like actual like tech work, right? Like I was a network administrator for a company that actually was headquartered at Sears Tower. So I would train from the northern suburbs of Chicago all the way into downtown Chicago. I had been out, this was a few months after my snowboarding gig or whatever, but it was still super cold. It was like February or March or something in Chicago. And it gets unreasonably cold here, right? So it's important to the story. So I'm sitting on the train. I'm doing what I usually do. I'm fucking just kind of all wound up. I'm looking around, doing my shit, got my computer out, taking stock of everything that's going on. And then I look out the window and I see fire, right? And I'm like, okay, nah, that didn't just happen, right? Like quick check. I'm like, blink a couple times, look back out. Yep, the tracks are definitely on fire, right? So like now Sergeant Hake kicks in. I immediately get up, grab my shit, go downstairs, start barreling towards the front of the train to find the first official looking motherfucker I could find on this train, right? And I find him in between the cars, thankfully, so there's nobody else there. But I'm like, look, man, what I'm going to say to you is going to sound crazy, but I need you to believe me and I need you to stay with me, okay? The tracks that we're on are on fire. He said, what? I said, the tracks that we're currently on, we're riding on right now. I just saw them. They're on fire. We need to fucking figure out what needs to happen right now. And he, like, my intensity got him immediately amped, right? Because I'm like, all right, fucking what, dude? It turns out in Chicago, like, there's a common problem with tracks freezing. So they actually have these little things that spray diesel fuel onto the tracks and they light them on fire. It's to keep the tracks from freezing so they can keep switching, right? But dude, I was fully fucking ready to handle this problem for Chicago Metro. I was all over this, right? Like totally unnecessary, totally didn't need to happen. And I think had I readjusted my priorities and my values and understood who I am in what environment I'm in and what is normal in that environment, that wouldn't happen. Right. And it was so fucking like this man works here. He knows about the fire on the tracks. Right. But I came up with so much intensity. It's just, you can't. And I think that's something that a lot of veterans do when they get out is like, we're still very intense and head on a swivel and hypervigilant and that kind of stuff.
I think that the military does a great job of, like we talked about earlier, puts everything on rails for you, including your value system. It gives it to you. And you're like, for the Air Force, it's integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do.
Excellence in all
and
we do,
those are the core values that you're expected to live by. And then if you go to the Air Force Academy, it's like you'll not lie, steal, or cheat, or tolerate anyone who does. And you have these things, and they're good things. They're aspirational things for sure. But the military is like this monolith of values and purpose. And when you get out, you just assume that's how it's going to stay. When in reality, as an individual, your value set is really diverse and it's very diversified. It's almost, I use this analogy a lot in my podcast, but it's like a mosaic now where you have to put all the little pieces together.
Exactly.
And some pieces are bigger than others.
Yes.
But we don't, especially if you join the military early in your life, which, surprise, everyone fucking did. You're not getting a lot of people who are like, I joined at 30 and I had it all together before I showed up. We're not well equipped to put that mosaic together or even know that we have to. And then once you think you've placed your mosaic, you have a kid or something else happens and then it changes. And you're like, whoa. I just fucking put this whole thing together and now I got to do it again. And it's, man, like it shifts sometimes. Like this shit changes.
And that's a huge important point, right? And one of the things that really chapped my ass when I got out that I wasn't expecting is like when you're in the military, we're all trying to go the same direction, right? Like we're all trying to march the same way. We're all trying to wear the same uniform. If I see you with your name tapes on reverse and say, hey, Sergeant, your shit's backwards. Don't square yourself away, right? And you're like, okay, cool. I want to be squared away, so I'm going to switch them. In the civilian world, you see somebody with their shoe untied. Hey, man, your shoe's untied. Hey, man, go fuck yourself. Why are you talking to me right now? You never know what you're going to get, right? You could be traveling north or what you think is true north, but somebody else's true north is in a wildly different direction. And then here's the other thing, too, is people aren't always trying to do the right thing. That fucks with me. That fucked with me a lot, right? So, like, you see somebody trying, like, just doing the wrong thing. Like, you just know they're being shady. They're being fucked up. people at work, right? People who are skating at work, people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, not contributing. And then people stepping up and trying to pretend like they were a part of the fucking whole production, right? You're like, all right, what the fuck, man? What is this bullshit? If you call it out, you are the asshole. Fucking 100% of the time. Everybody's traveling in their own direction, and you are only responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed about your own direction. Unless somebody explicitly asks you for advice about their direction, you need to shut the fuck up about it because nobody cares. And that's a very hard realization. Like, when people are just blatantly doing the wrong thing and you're like, look, motherfucker, you need to stop doing that. And they're just like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, come to Chicago. You'll see what the fuck I'm talking about. You can't correct everybody around here, man. It's bad news bears.
That's definitely whiplash that people get. Is it really is unique to be in an organization where everybody's in line. Like everyone's moving in a very similar direction. And I think that I've got 4 things in my head that I think a veteran needs to make a good transition. And it's self-awareness, understanding of like holistic values. So talking about that mosaic, you need to have initiative. So what you did, I need help. I'm going to go get help. I need to change myself. I'm going to go change myself versus going, I don't like where I'm at and I'm just going to sit here and not do shit about it. And then the last thing is community. I think we really need community. Like you need some support system. Like for you as your parents when you were going through rehab, your family, your wife right now, like whatever it is, people need that shit. And I think for us, there's a lot of whiplash coming out of the military and like trying to find friends because everybody in the military, you're guaranteed that everyone you're around is semi-aligned. So you're like, I'll probably vibe with you to at least some level.
Yeah.
And when you get out of the military, like you said, everyone's moving in all these different directions, and that's just not the case sometimes. And so finding people aligned with what you are as a person is difficult. And so then building that community is rather hard. And if you don't have that built-in initiative, you're going to go, yeah, well, fuck it. I guess I'm just not going to hang out with people anymore.
And that's not the right answer, right? But that's the right now answer for me, which sucks, right? Because I've been losing a lot of faith in just people in general. But
yeah,
when I say losing, I was never there. So I mean, at least it has been for a while, but I don't know, man. That shit's crazy. But yeah, you're spot on, dude. Like,
yeah,
everybody's trying to do their own thing, and it's super tough. The other, to that end too, something that I learned about that I wish I had known about was a concept called Wu Wei. I hope I'm saying that right. Wuwei. Wu Wei. It literally means no action. It's Chinese. It's a Chinese principle, right? You've heard of Go, like the Chinese games, kind of like yeah. I'm pretty sure it's from that or one of those other similar games. If I'm being totally transparent, I learned about this in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon from Uncle Iroh.
Greatest animated series of all time. I'll
So
fight
good.
anybody who says anything else.
Yeah. The character development in that is unbelievable.
Insane.
Unbelievable.
Uncle Iroh's the greatest dude, the coolest fucking guy ever. For sure.
Yeah.
Coolest dude. Easy.
Uncle Iroh talks about Wu Wei, and essentially it's no action. We're in a situation, so we have 2 options. We can either attack or retreat. He's like, no. You can attack or retreat or do nothing. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do nothing, right? Like, he talks about there's actually like 47 different types of doing nothing. There's only attacking, only retreating, but then there's like all of these different things you can do that are in action. We're a very action-oriented bunch, right? If I see something fucked up, I will literally go and fix it. And if somebody has something to say about it, I will fucking argue with you about it. I don't care. Like, action, right? Like, why are we having this conversation when this could have already been fucking done? That's the kind of person I like to be, right? Yeah. But dude, you have no idea how many problems that's created for me. And you saw a lot of it at Amazon with the way that I butted heads with leadership and the way that I'm like, yo, if I saw something fucked up, there was no way I wasn't saying anything. It just wasn't going to happen. There were plenty of times where consultants would hit me up on the side, right? And be like, can't believe you said that. I was thinking it, but there's no way I would say, I'm like, yeah, well, what are you going to fucking do, man? Yeah. But I think that being less aggressive, taking no action is very hard for us. And we see some other civilians do it all the time. Like, why is this guy not doing his job? Why is this guy not doing the thing, right? There's a lot more political shit going on. There's a lot more, it's way more complicated than it is in the military. We're all on the same, you've seen bad leaders in the military, right? Everybody has, right? And we all know what the instructions are, and we're all trying to go the same way, right? You're going to have way worse leaders when you get into your civilian sector. And if you treat them like bad leaders, okay, so one of the things that I learned as an NCO is that morale reflects leadership. Like, if morale is low, your leader sucks. Like, they're not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, right? But you can't say to your boss in the civilian world, morale reflects leadership. Like, they don't take it well. Like, it's not that I ever did or didn't do that, but I'm just saying, like, those types of approaches, right? Like, we're used to strong leaders and we respond best to strong leaders. Follow me, right? Lead the way, Sergeant, lead the way, that kind of shit, right? Like, you're going to see most of the leaders that you encounter after you get out of the military are not follow me leaders. They're not. They're do this leaders. And you've got to balance that ability to take action or not take action and not be so like aggressive about it. Right? If somebody told me to do something that I knew was stupid and I knew they were doing to appease another group of the organization or another piece like audit or something, I'd be like, I'm not fucking doing this. This is stupid and you're pandering to them, and that's fucking, you can't do that kind of stuff, right? Like, it's a non-starter. There's so many of those types of things where we get hard-nosed and hardline that will work you straight out of a civilian job. And believe me, like, it's happened to me several times since I've got out. Trust me. People do not like very direct communication that isn't framed in a very nice business
Package
way.
well. They don't like poorly packaged communication, which sucks because sometimes you just don't have time to like dial in what their love language is and then speak to them in that way. But if you're not in the military,
I'm here to give no BS assessments. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like, if you need me to say, look, I really enjoyed having lunch with you today, and what I might say next is it might be a little offensive, but I want you to understand that we as people can still get along. Like, I don't think your business is like, dude, like, I'm not fucking doing all that. Like,
yeah,
I will if I have to, but like, I'm not great at it.
So for people that are listening to this who have not gotten out of the military, what do you think? We've talked about a lot of things that we've seen now that we're out, now that we've gone through it, gotten beaten up a little bit. What do you think that people can do before they get out in order to prepare themselves better for this battle to come? And I know we've already talked about being very honest with yourself and not being decisive and not asking people, like being really just like real with who can and who can't help you in your situation. Like, I've already said that, but is there anything else that you think that people could do while they're preparing for their transition to better equip them so that they might not fall into as many holes as we did?
Yeah, dude, there's, man, almost anything you could think of, right? I'm just kidding. When I got out, we had ATAP, the Army Transition Assistance Program. It was a 1-week program. On the first day, they would show you how to write a resume. And then on the second day, they would offer you help writing your resume. On the third day, they would offer to do mock interviews with you. And then on the fourth day, they would do job placement, like stuff, right? That was it. That was the whole transition program. It was like 1 week, right? And it was interesting for me because I had already had a security clearance and already had landed a job months before that. Like, the contracting companies that can get a hold of soldiers, airmen, Marines, Coasties, whoever coming out of NSA billets with top secret clearances, make a fucking killing. Dude, the billet I was filling for this contracting agency was like, they were charging like $360K a year. I was getting like 75 of it. And they didn't have to train me at all. I showed up and rocked that shit, man. So the assistance that they were offering in the transition was non-existent for me. I'm like, I've already done my resume. I already have a job and my interviews are over. They're like, congratulations, you're done. Like you've won, like you've transitioned. And I'm like, nah, man. I think that, man, what would I have done differently? See, and that question, you have to really understand that you don't know what you don't know at the time. Like, as long as I didn't have to wear that fucking uniform and stand at parade rest anymore, I was golden, dude. That was my attitude. There was nothing that right now me could say to that me to prepare me for that 10 years, the last 10 years, which sucks. But man, dude, I don't know, dude. I almost think we should start telling people it's going to be way fucking harder than you think it is, and you're going to fail and you're going to suck and you need a transition, buddy. And then when it doesn't, that's great. I'm glad that wasn't the case for you, but it seems like that's what most people need, right?
Almost like worst case scenario it. And so then people can, so that when, yeah, if you prepare for the worst case scenario and you get literally anything else, you go, that wasn't that bad. And then you go, that's great.
Yeah.
Proud of you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Don't increase your alcohol intake. If I had one steadfast rule that I could enforce on all, I wouldn't even say quit drinking. Just don't fucking go crazy when you get out, man, and put on that extra weight. That's how it starts, dude. You're seeing them ass fucking veterans with a beard and they're just fucking miserable, talking shit about how they used to be in
They
them.
drink all the time.
Yeah, dude, they're just always fucking drinking. I'm like, man, dude.
Yep.
Try to keep that in check. But legitimately, if I had to say things that man, before you start getting out, you really need to start reflecting on who you are and what you're about. I think that your mosaic thing touches on the same core values thing that I thought was really, I've got it written over here in my notes too. Like, that's huge, dude. Like, we are literally packaged to be amazing for our country. That's why people say thank you for your service, because we're fucking engineered to do the best thing for the country. When you get out, if you don't adjust that programming, you're going to still be trying to do stuff for the country, but you're going to be in no position to do it. You're going to have no authority to do it. You're going to have no ability to do it in most cases. And you're going to feel useless because you're not going to be able to do the things you used to do. And it's not any fault of yours. It's just that transition of the core values, that transition of the what is my purpose is huge, right? It hits everyone differently. Like for me, I almost had two transitions. It's weird, right? Because I had the transition where I went from military contractor and then contractor to no more GovSec at all. So my first transition was a little easier because I was still doing the same thing, right? Like I was still the same person. I still could talk to all the same people. I was now just a contractor who used to be an NCO. That's pretty cool, right? But then after that, that's when you really start to understand, I've been a protector for so long, right? I now am a civilian who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder with an alcohol problem. Who the fuck am I protecting now? Nobody, right? I'm a liability now. Now that I don't have that job, I'm a liability. So what are my core values, right? Who am I going to serve in this condition? Selfless service. Who am I serving in this condition, right? It becomes like almost like a plank. Like you have all of this shit and then you have nothing. And it's, oh, you didn't build a ship? You didn't build a ship to walk on before you fucking go around it? That's weird. Why didn't you do that? That seems like that was common sense.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
wow.
I wish it was common sense, but it's not. Before I ask you my last question, do you have anything on your list that you wanted to mention before we do that?
I literally touched on all of this stuff. The boots thing, I think, is super important. There's going to be things you're going to take with you from the military, and that's okay, right? But decide what you want to take and what you don't want to take beforehand. I don't know, man. Oh, one other thing, don't throw all your military shit away. I don't know why. I was ready to fucking rage, dude. I gave all of my shit away to my Joes. I I gave away TA50. I had to pay for so much shit, man. I was giving away everything. You want these fucking? Yeah, dude. Some canteens and stuff, and colleges, whatever, dude. Take it all. I'm never gonna use this shit again. Uniforms? Yeah, stripped all the tags off, fucking gave away all the uniforms, all that shit. Kept a couple pairs of boots, really. But yeah, don't give away all your shit. You'll regret that. At some point, even if you don't in 5 years, when you have kids, you'll regret it. I wish I had some of that shit to let my son dress up in. That's one little dumb thing.
No, I love it. I think that's an awesome thing to bring up.
That's
So
it, man.
the last question then, what final piece of advice before we close out the pod do you want to leave everybody with?
Good piece of advice. I don't know if I'm in a position to give anyone advice on anything, right?
Well, you're on a podcast right now, so send
I
it.
need a more expert for that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Let me think on it for a second. I don't know. I think if I had one final piece of send-off advice, and I think this is as much for myself as it is for everyone else, right? One of the things the military really did for me was it set me in default aggressive mode. Like, I am aggressive and intense about almost everything, right? And it's something that I'm still trying to meter. It's something that I'm still trying to temper, right? As I grow older and as I want to be more involved with people who are naturally softer, right? Children, like my 2 kids and stuff like that. Like, it's something that I didn't address immediately, and now I'm having a lot of trouble addressing now. Lower the intensity, get rid of all that shit. I remember seeing an art installation. I was staying, I think it was in Memphis. It was at a place called 21C. But this dude was a counter guerrilla fighter in Colombia, and he had gotten injured, right? And he had gotten one of his arms blown off. And the art installation was a short video. It was like a minute and a half of him ceremoniously washing camouflage off of his face, right? He's got no arm, but it's meant to symbolize his transition from a person who's fighting that war against terror to a now injured civilian. So he's literally going through a physical act of removing that stuff, right? And I just thought that was really, I don't know, very symbolic, very awesome in a lot of ways. I think we should do that, right? In some kind of very meaningful way. There's no ceremony. There's no getting out of the military 21 gun salute. There's not, you just literally, you might have, yeah, you just literally leave. I didn't even have a going away party. I was so fucking bitter. My Joes were like, dude, you gotta have a going away party. I was like, nope, I'm not giving any of the motherfuckers that led me the satisfaction. Fuck everybody here, man. They're like, dude, that's really fucked up. I'm like, and at that point, I was so jaded. I was just like, fuck these dudes, man. I gave you everything that I know. Now it's on you. If you want to stay in, fucking, that's your choice, dude. I gave you every bit of knowledge that I had and told you to get the fuck out. Now, do what you got to do, man. Yeah, I don't know. That default aggressive though. Try to temper that and try to be nice to people. I'm just not fucking nice to anyone anymore. I don't give anybody the benefit of the doubt. Like, everybody's a piece of shit, and it's not a good way to live, man. It's really not. Like, I try to be nice, dude, but it literally rubs off on every aspect of my life to every single person. My mom, my wife, like that intensity that I got in the military of, we need to get this right. We need to get it right now so that nothing happens, right? Especially working in a fucking counterterrorism mission or counterproliferation mission. That shit does not serve me in a civilian life. I had one, I don't want to call him a mentor, but just an acquaintance, tell me that Sergeant Hackey's a man out of time and place, and that TR needs to figure out who he is and what he's about. And it's just like, fucked with me, dude. I don't know, man. I don't want to be intense, and I don't want to be stuck to the military, and I don't want to still carry all of these traits and all of these things I learned, but I'm scared not to, right? Because I didn't de-escalate myself. I didn't disarm myself when I got out of the military. I kept that default aggressive. I kept all of those weapons. I kept all of those fucking skills. And now I'm a walking weapon in a lot of ways. Compared to other people around me, I'm a walking fucking like liability, right? Like, I've had people tell me before, like, you're kind of dangerous. Like, I'm not comfortable. And it's like, thank you. But really, that should be like, oh, fuck, like, they think you're mentally unstable, like, because of some of the shit you said, like at the boot camps and stuff. Like, people have been like, all right, I'm gonna keep that guy at a distance, right? Like, they're just not geared for me. And when I really get to talking to people in that aggressive tone, it works great when you're trying to sell a target package to a combat operations team. It's fucking fantastic when you're trying to justify targeting counterterrorism fucking assets and shit. But like, when you tell your wife, look, I don't understand why you did this. This thing was supposed to happen this way. You did it this way, and I don't get it. So you need to explain to me why that happened. That's not okay. That's not far. It's never okay. Right. So that would be my last piece of advice, is just like, unless you're like a Sean Ryan or something, and or one of those other guys that go out and shoot and do all those cool things all the time. Yeah, no, man. Like, I never needed that shit in the first place. I was a fucking fobbit, bro. I don't know, man. I wish I never would have done that shit, man. If I had any piece of advice, don't join the fucking military.
It's an interesting like duality though, because I don't know. I really enjoy talking to you. I really enjoy who you are as a person. And
Thanks, man.
so
Mhm.
the things that have happened in your life have gotten you to this point where I, at the very least, find you to be an incredibly enjoyable dude. And
I
so
appreciate that.
you, I think you almost you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater almost,
Yeah.
where it's like yeah, like, are you an intense guy? Sure. Like, but you're also aware of your intensity. And I think that knowing is more than half the battle when it comes to dialing in your behavior, and you'll get it right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you don't know who you would be without the military, and you might have been way worse. Like you could have been way
You're
worse.
absolutely right. Fair
But
point. How do you
but
know you would have been better without?
yeah,
And that's a very fair point. Super
yeah,
fair point. So.
and but I think that
Yeah.
you like I think that you can recognize, hey, I've got some things to work on, just like any other dude in the world. And but you can also say like you did good things in the military, you helped protect the nation, which is awesome, and the military did some things for you, like you became a good person through development in the military. And the fact that you are able to speak about it now is in and of itself, I think, powerful and something worth being proud of. And yeah, I just think that like the growth, that the journey that you're going on to make yourself someone who is just a little bit more tuned down, I think you're getting there. You know where the journey needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not just like someone who's just, I'm intense all the fucking time and everyone
Yeah.
needs to be like,
Deal with it.
yeah,
Get
deal with it. Yeah.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you're not someone who feels the need for people to conform to who you are. You say, I understand why I am the way that I am. And I also understand that there's a time and a place for that thing. And so I'm trying to dial that back. And I
Mhm.
just think that stuff like that takes time, man.
It-
And keep in mind, I've only been out of the military for 2 years. So
Same.
I can't tell you anything because you're 8 years in front of me. But
Well, I really appreciate the kind words, man. And I can't tell you how much respect I have for what you're doing here.
I
Like,
appreciate it.
I think that a lot of stories, especially stories like mine, are stories that people aren't really comfortable listening to in person. It's not fun a lot of times to sit and listen to veterans fucking bitch. Like, and a lot of us are pretty intense, right? I respect the hell out of what you're doing here. And it really means a lot for you to take the time to give those kind words, right? And I hope that what we're sharing helps some people understand better their own journey, right? That's the thing, right? I was always, are you mission capable or not? Are you ready or not? It's always like an on or an off thing, right? You either can or you can't. Like, but now I'm so much more in tune with the fact that it is a journey, and every step you take is just one small step in the right direction. And every time you stop moving your feet, you're going backwards. And you just have to persevere, right? And I think you asked about that a little bit earlier, and I didn't really understand how to say it, but I think perseverance and just drive and just having that hard nosed ability to just figure it the fuck out is super important. So, yeah, if you have one trait that you come out of the military with, that would probably be the one to take. Is don't quit moving your feet. Don't quit trying to get better. I don't know, man. And I feel like I did a lot of the shit the hard way too. Like I really did. Like I didn't lean on a lot of people that I didn't already trust with my life, right? Like I wasn't going out and meeting veterans who were having similar struggles and shit. Like I was just sitting at home talking to the few people that I did grow up with, right? What do I need to do? And so my artist friend tells me make art. And my other buddy tells me make music. So like I tried those things. So I don't know, man. Just keep figuring it out. Like you'll get there. There's good things, like for sure.
What I want to end on is what you just said and everything that you've said on this podcast. It's growth. Like I would imagine, I guarantee you that if I interviewed you 8 years ago, I'm not getting this. I'm not getting this insight at all.
No,
And
not at
so
all.
I, if I like for you, look at that and say you've improved so much over this time. And that is so incredibly impressive because so many people in your shoes never do that. And so I don't know it from third party perspective, the growth and the self-awareness I think is incredible. I think you should be really proud of that. And you've got a really powerful story, and I've really enjoyed getting to listen to some of it because I you can't package all of it in a 2 hour podcast, but it's
All
been
good, man,
it's been really awesome. And
for sure.
I'm grateful for you coming on here and having the courage to talk about all this shit because it's hard, and
Mm.
saying that, yo, I'm fucked up. That's not a fun thing for people to talk about. People
Yeah,
don't like that very much. And so I am very grateful that you have decided to do that because I know it'll help people who listen to this.
man. I appreciate you, dude.
I do.
You've always got a way to articulate and just say just the right things, but I appreciate your appreciation, dude. It's not often that we get to share these types of stories, especially in an environment where it's completely safe, right? This is what we're supposed to be talking about. If
Yep.
you and I were having this conversation in a bar, we might be asked to leave just based on how animated it gets, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I'm just super impressed with what you're doing here. And I really appreciate you having me on. I really, really appreciate the insight, the questions. Yeah, man. And we need to exchange numbers. I think I have your number. I'll have to double check. We've got to make
We'll
this.
get it after the episode.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have to, yeah, man, keep in touch. And
course.
if you ever need anything, dude, or
Same.
any of the other folks out there that may or may not have my number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Awesome.
You'll I'll have all of TR's socials on the description of this video. So hit them up. Think that's the episode. So for all of you guys that are out there listening, thank you so much for making it to the end. So TR, great job. You're crushing
Thank
it.
you.
And to everyone else out there, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting. If you like this content, please share it with those who need to hear it. And yeah, if you ever need anything, please reach out to someone who needs it. And we will see all of you on the next episode of the Post Military Podcast. Peace.